This is the Fifth Estate winning headlines, your media police post. Brought to you by the Fort Hall School of Government, coming to you from Nairobi, Kenya. In this segment, we summarize some of the headlines that you might have missed this morning. But we also take a look at the political pieces that we call cartoons in this country. Today is the 14th of February 2020, and I am 2J.
I'm Tom.
And I am JM. In case you missed the headlines, here they are.
Yes. Happy Valentine's Day, guys.
Yes,
wow.
Happy Valentine's Day.
Did you attend or will you attend the men's conference?
Happy men's conference day.
Yeah.
I went there earlier. I'm going back for the after party.
Oh, wow.
And the conference is going on tomorrow.
Am I allowed to join?
No.
For the women at home, can you explain what the men's conference is?
No.
Oh. Top secret. Okay, I see how it is.
So, in the Daily Nation, Moi, the X-Files, in the Star, how Gideon plans to take on DP Ruto, and in the Standard, power of the baton.
Yes.
Daily Nation.
Yes.
Going back into
Moi.
Into Moi's legacy.
They don't want Moi to rest. And the Nation is telling us the X-Files, and I think they're trying to tell us that. That in as much as Moi's image was cleaned the past 1 week, we must be real that he committed some, atrocities.
Yeah.
I mean, they say alien reality of murder, brutality, and humanity. And here the stories of George Anyona,
Absolutely.
Kenneth Matiba, who was tortured.
Yeah.
You had Koigi Wamwere, who was, had to go into exile. And you know what? Yes, this stuff happened, and we must be honest. But at the same time, Gema bullied Moi. If Gema had not slapped Moi when he was vice president, if Gema had not spoken Kikuyu in cabinet meetings and undermined him, if Gema generally had not mistreated him, I don't think Moi would have.
So he had to do this to survive.
Number one, he had to create hegemony.
So you've been making this argument for the past week, right? And I haven't really said much, but I want to ask you, not that I'm trying to be a saint or anything, but Mahatma Gandhi said, an eye for an eye makes a whole world
blind.
Yeah. So is it justified? Do the ends justify the means? So just because he was treated in the way that he was when he was not in power, justifies the way that he behaved thereafter?
Mahatma Gandhi was a monk. Moi is a politician. You see,
all's fair in love and politics.
Yes, and look, you cannot treat a man badly for that long and expect him not to fight.
I was listening to Fred Gumu the other day when he was describing Moi's presidency, and he was saying Moi was not a dictator. But towards the end of the interview, he started talking about the 82 coup and how that changed Moi's outlook on the presidency and how to treat people.
Yes.
And he said, when they do a coup on you, the point is to kill you, not to have a cup of tea with you.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. So he had to do what he had to do thereafter. He realized everybody is a bastard, and these guys, if I don't treat them in a certain way,
I've been telling
finish me.
I've been telling some pretty entitled Kikuyus over the past couple of days. Say, oh, Moi was a bad person. I'm like, you probably deserved it, So you probably deserve.
Oh wow!
You probably deserve. It's not a good thing to say. It's not a good thing to say, and maybe it should never have happened.
But we must also remember all these victims, the victims that are named here, and then they were not necessarily without a point.
No, not at all.
Regarding democracy and government and what have you. It's anyway a good line. I think a good headline.
Oh, fantastic headline.
I think we park it as we consider. The Star and the Standard, which are about the succession. Now that Mzee has passed away, and his son Gideon was crowned. In the ceremony, the final send-off at Kabarak, we saw Raymond Moi passing on the baton and the rungu of Mzee to Gideon. And he was basically crowned as the successor of this political engine called KANU. And the question now is, can it be revived? Will it be revived? And what are Gideon's plans to basically oust Ruto?
You can be sure the man from Baringo, Yeketi, is not going to let this go. KANU is not dying with Moi. And if he's been given 40 days to resuscitate it, when the Kalenjins are going to pay homage to him in Baringo, I mean Kabarak. Gideon Moi is going to go for a jugular.
Yeah.
And he's going.
Yeah, and I think he would be a fool to waste, as we said yesterday, this opportunity that his father has, inadvertently given him. So I think that he should run with it.
Yeah.
Of the two headlines, I will say that I prefer the Star, because the Star is just getting right to the point, you know. This one, the power of the baton, I think we've already seen that story. We saw the handing over of it, but this one is telling us how Gideon is going to very strongly take on DP. I like it.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah. So I think we give it to the nation.
Let's give it to the nation.
Yeah, give it to the nation. That's
Give it
true.
to the nation.
The
Absolutely.
X-Files.
Can we toss them? Are we back to tossing?
Yeah, we're back to
yes,
tossing.
yes.
We're back to tossing. Absolutely. And on to the political pieces that we call cartoons in this country. We have a 3-part criteria that we use to assess these cartoons.
Yes.
And I want you guys to help me here. What criteria do we use?
There's
one about being thoughtful and being lazy.
Are they funny or are they boring?
Yes, one about being funny and sarcastic.
Sarcastic.
Another
Are they
one
pessimistic or effective?
Hating of country.
Okay.
Yes.
That's it.
Are
Now,
they effective or just plain
lazy? That's it.
We have completely made that up. None of that is true.
What do we have in the standard?
Describe this one.
Oh gosh, no, I don't like describing. You're funnier than me.
Come on, man. Gado is a drawing of a man and a girl sitting on a bench.
A man and a woman.
A man and a woman.
Thank you.
Sitting on a bench. On it's Valentine's Day, and they're both muffled. They can't speak, and yet Cupid there is throwing them love hearts. I don't know, and
He's
they're
also
saying Happy
muffled.
Valentine. It's also muffled.
Yeah.
What are they trying to tell us?
This is in the context of the coronavirus,
Yeah.
right?
Oh, right. But they don't have corona in Africa.
Oh, that's what they've told us. We're not so sure. Apparently, it's hit Uganda, but that's unverified.
No,
I'm
but,
not so sure.
apparently it's also come to Kenya. I don't know if this circulation was real or fake, but it said at Masai Mara University there were some 6 students who had been, said to have caught coronavirus. I don't know if that's fake news or not.
But you heard the story of a restaurant in Naivasha, a prominent restaurant, and 2 Chinese individuals walked into the restaurant, and all the patrons fled in fear, afraid that they would catch the virus.
I'm not surprised.
However, I will say the coronavirus should not be an excuse for us to be racist against Chinese people, right?
And in fact, today, if you see, if you're a man and you see a Chinese girl in the club, please get her corona beer.
Oh my god, you're terrible. Okay, I think we
tossed that
one.
just outright, yeah.
Fairly dry.
What have we got in the Daily Nation?
In the Daily Nation. In the Daily Nation, we have Victor Ndula. Here we have a chocolate box that says Happy Valentine's, and inside there are some chocolate pieces, each of them labeled BBI.
Yeah.
And there's a card on the top that says, with love from the political elite, XOXO. Dry as a bone, as DM would say.
But there's one chocolate there. All the rest are out, correct?
Yeah.
And the one is
remaining.
Yeah. So who do you think was giving this to Raila to?
I don't know.
Yeah,
but I think it's so dry. Really.
It's dry, but it's really appealing to the eye and very mouth-watering. On Valentine's Day, you typically expect, especially as a woman, expect to receive a box of chocolates.
Yes.
And I'm looking at this and I'm thinking, it's really appetizing. I definitely want to get some chocolates after
I
this.
received no chocolates today. That's what I'll say.
What do you think Ruto will get Uhuru?
I don't know.
Toss that.
All right, finally, in the Star.
Their chicken. Let me describe it. It's a caricature. Oh man, it's fantastic. Gideon Moi, but is it this short? Caricature of Gideon Moi with an oversized rungu ya Moi.
And then a Kano t-shirt.
And they're standing beside Moi's grave. Next to him is William Ruto with love hearts in a bow tie, holding a rose. And next to him is Uhuru Kenyatta. And he is next to his Mohiki, who is Raila Odinga sitting on the bench. And oh man,
on the floor is a BBI.
And the caption is "No love lost." And Ruto has come with love hearts and rose, and Raila.
But Uhuru is otherwise occupied.
Uhuru is not even looking at him.
And they look like they're trying to charm.
Oh my gosh, the posture is so perfect.
Are you seeing Gideon? Rungu ya Moi has a bow.
A bow as well.
Yeah.
Which
brings up the question, which begs the question: do you guys think that Gideon has the ability to take his birthright back away from William Ruto?
Absolutely. Look, 2002, Uhuru Kenyatta was the most colorless politician. Yeah. And when he
big suits, terrible haircuts.
Yes.
Yeah.
With time, he mellowed. Yes, and he matured, and he started getting this charm. You know, he was charming his way through women, and women's hearts. And now I'm in his constituency, and everybody else.
Yeah.
And now he's our president. 10 years. I mean, 10 years later, he got the presidency. They can do the same thing to Gideon. Plus, the guy has the money. I'm not sure whether he's generous enough, but he has the money to do it, and why not? I think they should give it a try.
The only challenge, I think, is Gideon has a reputation for being mkonogam.
Stingy.
Very stingy. He is as stingy as Ruto is generous with money.
Oh yes.
You know? And that can either take you very far or really limit your
I think the charm in his accent can only take him so far. Even legacy can only take him so far.
Absolutely. Precisely. And maybe stop telling people about his Kelly and let him ride a new Kelly while giving money like Santa.
So on that note, do we award the star?
I think we give the star.
The winning
That's a very humorous cartoon.
Most definitely.
Yes. And so, what is our final thought?
It's a beautiful book. And final thought. And now our final thought. It is inspired by a book entitled "How to Rig an Election."
Yes.
By Nick Cheeseman and Brian Klaas.
Yeah.
Before you get into it, let me recount an encounter I had with Nick Cheeseman.
The author, okay.
The author, precisely.
Yeah.
I think he's a political scientist.
Yes.
And I met him at Chatham House in the year 2013. February was the month, just before the March 2013 elections.
That's London, eh?
And I engaged him. And he held a press conference, and if you recall that time, the entire Western fraternity, the diplomatic corps in this country and abroad were saying that they will have very limited relations, or they will have choices have consequences.
Essential contact.
Only essential contact with Uhuru Kenyatta and William Ruto should they win the election in the unlikely event in any case.
Yes.
They did not believe. I think Cheeseman was one of those people who was propagating this idea that Uhuru and Ruto could not possibly win the election. These are suspects. He was basically arguing on moral grounds. And so I challenged him. And I told him, have you seen the latest tyranny of numbers prediction by Professor Mutai Ngunyi? And he says no. So I sent him the video. He watched it, and 13 minutes later, he's writing back to me, and he says, and I quote, "It is simplistic and lacking in credibility." Can you imagine? Now, I want to remind him, and remind just about everybody who didn't think.
Should have poured Uji on him.
Listen. We predicted that Uhuru and Ruto would win by 6.188 million votes. This was a prediction of Professor Mutai Ngunyi in tyranny of numbers. The actual results was 6.173 million votes.
It's a margin of error. How much?
14,000 votes. 14,000 votes. Can you imagine? So a whole professor discounting a whole study carefully,
based on data and statistics.
Based on statistics.
Maybe
so on so forth.
Maybe the London weather had frozen his mind.
So not particularly a very credible person, in my view.
And as we look at the book,
has a tendency to view things not as they are, but as he is. A one-dimensional view of things.
And maybe we can take some of that pinch of salt as we look at this book as well.
So tell us about his book.
How to Rig an Election. So I'll just tell a short story that he gives in the book. In 2013, the highly repressive government of Azerbaijan tried to increase its democratic credentials by launching an iPhone application that allowed citizens to keep up with the speed of vote tallies as the ballot counting took place. So in an effort to be transparent, the new technology would allow anyone to watch the results come in live. So you're looking at your phone and you're seeing them being counted live. But those who were ready to use the app were shocked to find that they could see the results of the election the day before the polls opened. So in other words, anyone with the app could see who had won, who had lost, and by what margin before the votes had even been cast. So when journalists asked the government how they had managed the act of political time travel, the authorities claimed that these were the results from the previous election. But this didn't make sense because it was the same candidates that were set to be elected in the upcoming election. So by mistake, the government had placed a digital light on the fraud that they intended to have in the shadows. So these are the kind of stories that Cheeseman and Brian Klaas tell in this book. They point out what they call the biggest political paradox of our time, that there are more elections than ever before, and yet the world is becoming less democratic. So the authors interviewed more than 500 leaders and top figures and put everything that they learned into this book. And while they focus on autocrats and other strong leaders, they question the notion that elections weaken tough leaders. Instead, they suggest that elections can actually help these leaders increase their grip on power. And so in this age of technology and social media, what a better way to manipulate the masses than through the digital era. And so in an effort to answer the question of how to rig an election, Cheeseman and class offer what they call a 6-stage menu of manipulation. And each of these stages are covered in the 6 chapters of the book. So you have number 1, invisible rigging, which is essentially gerrymandering. You have buying hearts and minds, which is vote buying. You have divide and rule, use violence. You have hack the election, which is where you essentially just hack the election. Ballot box stuffing, which I think is the oldest form of election rigging. And then you have how to fool the West, how to play to the international community. So what they find is that rigging elections is actually a really good way or really good strategy for leaders to stay in power. It's much better than pulling an Idi Amin and trying to kill everybody who goes against you. If you rig an election, it's a more secure way. So they say in the book, rigging elections typically enables embattled governments to secure access to valuable economic resources like foreign aid, while re-inspiring their ruling party, and often dividing the opposition. 30 years ago, the main aim of the average dictator was to avoid holding elections. Today, it is to avoid losing them. So I think in this book you get a lot of interesting tidbits on how to rig an election.
I love it. I love it. There's a chapter he calls "How to Steal an Election Without Rigging," right? And he says that the smartest way to rig an election is to do so even before the ballots have been printed. So he gives the example of 1998 in Russia, a place called St. Petersburg, and it's the mayoral election. Now there's a man called Oleg Sergeyev who's running for mayor in Russia, in St. Petersburg. And there's an incumbent who was called Governor Vladimir Yakolev. Now, this Yakolev guy, smart guy, launches a plot to split the opposition. And he goes to the street and he finds 2 people with the same name as Oleg Sergeyev. And one is a plumber, and the other one is a cobbler. One is a plumber, one is a pensioner. And now they print their names on the ballot. Now, when the masses actually went there to vote, there was Oleg Sergeyev, Oleg Sergeyev, 3 people with the same name. By the time they realized, they had split the opposition. All of them had received the votes, and Governor Vladimir Yakolev won the election. They literally split the election. You know, I just wonder. It reminded me of 1992 general election. They used to use a system called Mlolongo. Now, what would happen is you would line up behind the picture of a candidate, right? Now, the most let's take for example, there was Matiba and there was Moi. Now, in central Kenya, you would have a line full of Matiba, right, and a line very short, short line behind the Moi picture. Now, the provincial administration would come pretending that they're coming to count the number of voters, because you needed to prove how many voters have lined up before the picture. So they would whip everyone on the Matiba side, say 1, and then they would all move to the Moi side. 2, 3, 4. At that time they're counting. But by the time he's done, literally everybody behind the Matiba picture had moved to the Moi picture. And you say, Moi has won.
The funny thing, as primitive as that sounds, that is what the US to date still uses as they go through their election process. It's incredible.
And I think we should speak a little bit about that before I go into another one of the mechanisms that he suggests. Because we have direct democracy, these people have a lot of material. But what about a country like the US, which has the college system? And it has very many avenues, I'm sure, in that
to rig an election.
Are we saying that elections are only rigged in Africa?
Only rigged definitely not.
In developing countries? I don't think so.
I just think that they have gotten better at hiding the rigging than we have. We're just not, that good at stealing. They've figured it out.
Absolutely.
Better. Who knows?
Who knows?
Who knows?
Yeah. And so we should also write a book.
Yes.
Authored by the Fort Hall School of Government. You should go study there.
As part of the Caucasian, yes,
systems.
as part of the Caucasian school, yes?
Absolutely.
What we have.
Absolutely.
Yes, so we have
Caucasian
a school
studies.
So we study white people.
And they're flawed election systems. Something he talks about is this divide and rule strategy. Now, sadly, Kenya is quoted extensively as a case study in this book on how to rig elections. And this is all that happened during the Moi years and a bit also during the Kibaki presidency. Now, you will recall that during the 92 election, Moi faced a make or break moment. The opposition combined was far more popular than him. And so his question was, the challenge for him was, how do I engineer a division so that they don't bring me down? And so he realized that the leaders of the opposition had inflated egos. And you will recall the formation of FORD. FORD was formed by two very formidable personalities. Oginga Odinga, who represented the Luo, and Matiba, who represented the Kikuyu. Very strong candidates, but very big egos. Now, Odinga saw himself, this is what Cheeseman is saying, Odinga saw himself as the only credible opposition leader, having not served in the Kano government since the 1960s. Matiba, on the other hand, saw himself as the one man who paid, I think, the highest price, closer to 92, having actually taken the bold, courageous move to do Saba and what have you.
And possibly had the most money as well.
Yeah, absolutely, right? And charisma and all of that. And so the Moi government, knowing this, then started to drive a wedge between them. And they were very successful at that. And he recalls a situation, a day, which is very humorous. When Matiba arrived back in Nairobi following his hospital treatment in London, Kanu paid for people to bolster his welcome party, cheering him home. The rationale for this was, the more confident Matiba became about his chances, the less willing he was to play second fiddle to Odinga. And sure enough, over the weeks that followed, FORD began to split into two, effectively becoming two parties in one. FORD Asili under Matiba and FORD Kenya under Odinga.
Divide and rule.
I tell you, Moi used all sorts of Machiavellian tactics,
including the opposition,
precisely, including inviting people at State House, funding their campaigns secretly, and it worked. And he bought himself an extra 10 years in power.
Do you think Mwai Kibaki was actually put there to split the game of vote?
Very, very probable. And Mwai Kibaki was playing the long game. He knew he couldn't get 92. He knew he couldn't get 97. But he knew get 2002.
He knew by 2002 probably Matiba would not be in the state to run for president.
Absolutely. So Matiba took the hit, and Kibaki took the glory.
Interesting book that I think is still relevant in 2020.
Yes.
Especially as we approach.
And there are many case studies for across. I mean, really across the world, not just Kenya.
So the opposition itself can also rig an election.
Oh yeah, most definitely.
So on a day that we had a winning headline
from the Daily
Nation, a winning cartoon from the Star. I will bid you a good evening
and a happy Valentine's Day.
Happy Valentine's Day. Don't forget to follow us on YouTube. We are also on Pang TV. We are also on Star Times. We are also on very many channels.
Exactly. And of course, today we would like to let you know that we're celebrating the 1-year anniversary of the Fifth Estate opening officially as a TV station. Thank you so much for all your support to all our viewers and subscribers.
Our loyal and dedicated
Exactly.
viewers.
This is just 1 year. We're not, we're crawling. We'll be walking and running soon. So stick around for more.
We'll be reading the airwaves.